We're live from the birdhouse. It is April 11th, so we are getting into the middle of April here, and that means that different birds are starting to sing and come into the area and start looking for nesting sites and start nesting. So it's a really exciting time of the year. So today we'll give you an update about some of the different birds people are seeing and the different things that you can do to attract more of them to your yard. And we'll share some of your photos as well. So as always, we like to know who's online. If you're on, you can say hi in the comments. If you have any questions, you can throw those in there too. And we always like to know what kind of things you're seeing also or hearing this time of the year. There's a lot of things that are singing early in the morning. I heard some robins singing at about 5 o'clock in the morning. This morning they were starting early, so lots of robins singing, lots of cardinals. Carolina wrens have been very chatty. Tufted titmouse singing up a storm. So curious about what kind of things you guys are hearing as well. So throw those in the comments. First of all, we've had lots of events going on here at the birdhouse. So if you're local to the Rochester area, you might want to check out our event list because there's lots of stuff going on. This past Saturday, we had a blast here at the store with the Wildlife Rock Star group. We had them here at the store. They brought several different critters to the store, and that was a lot of fun. So we'll be having them back. Probably this summer we'll have them back. But we have a whole calendar of events that's on our website right now, which is thebirdhouseny.com. You can go on there, see all the events we have coming up at the store, and some are even as soon as this weekend. On Saturday, we're giving a bluebirds class over at Whitehaven Memorial Park, so we're teaming up with them to do some classes and bird walks and butterfly walks over there. So that's a Saturday. We'll also be having our first plant sale of the year here at the store, and we'll be having more plant sales than ever this year as well, including a native plant sale. The local Hosta Society is going to have their plant sale here as well, so we're going to have a full calendar of events and plant sales. And then next Tuesday, we are having another program with Dana Ford, who last week gave us a program about owls of the area. She'll be back to do a program on different birds of prey that we have here that are the diurnal birds of prey, if you will, the hawks, the falcons, so the birds that we can see during the day here in the area. So she'll be back on Tuesday, and we'll be doing an in-person class and also live streaming it at the same time. And then one other thing of note, this is something brand new that we are doing for the first time ever. We are having a birding tour on the Sam Patch boat on the Erie Canal. So this is the first time we've ever had something like this. So I want to let you know early in case you want to go. Seats are limited. The tickets are $35, and you can buy those on our website right now. We just got that set up yesterday. So that is on July 20th. In order to buy the tickets, just go to our event list, find this event, which is the birding tour on the Sam Patch boat, and you can buy your tickets right there. So tickets are limited. So it's first come, first serve. So we've got that going on. But really the most common question we've been getting over the past 2 or 3 weeks are, when are the orioles coming? When are the hummingbirds coming? We still have a little bit of time, unless you're further down south, like in the Carolinas. You're not going to see them for a bit. We still have a couple of weeks before people start seeing the orioles. We start getting the first reports of orioles around that last week of April. So we've got about 2 weeks or so before you need to get those feeders out. They start flowing in very late April, but really early May is when people really start to get them. And by mid-May, they are really coming in at a rapid pace. So we still have some time. So now is a good time to kind of get all your feeders in order, make sure you've got everything ready and cleaned, you've got your jelly, you've got your nectar, because it'll be here soon. A couple weeks from now is when you'll want to get those feeders out. And then hummingbirds lag behind just a little bit, so they're usually about a week later. So we say the first week of May is usually the best time to put out that hummingbird feeder. So we're getting there. We're almost there, but we still have at least a couple of weeks to go, 2-3 weeks or so. But now is the time to put out houses for birds like bluebirds, for example. We've been getting reports of bluebirds going in and out of houses, bluebirds with nesting materials, bluebirds starting to lay eggs. So now is absolutely the time you want to start putting out houses, whether it be for bluebirds, for the chickadees, for the wrens. Now is the perfect time. The ground is starting to thaw. You can get poles into the ground. So definitely want to start with the houses now, because birds are actively looking for places to nest and will continue doing so as more of them flow into the area, as they migrate in, and as the season goes on, more and more will start that breeding process. So now is absolutely the time to get your houses out. This is a photo from last year, I believe, sent in by Bob, of a eastern bluebird there with nesting material in its bill. So you might see some of this kind of activity, especially if you have out a nesting ball or any kind of nesting material. You might see birds with a whole bunch of nesting material in their bill this time of the year. Then that is a sure sign that they are nesting somewhere or starting that nesting process. So last week I put out even more houses. I have probably about 10 or so bluebird houses out in a piece of property that I go out to quite often and go camping at. And I've had a whole stash of houses. So I decided last week I had a day off. It was lovely out. I gathered all my houses to put out in the ground. Here's a whole picture of all the houses I put up with one of my little helpers there. And we'll see what goes in them. Here's my other helper came to help me and to supervise, of course, with the house process. And with these, I put them all on poles. So in general, you want to make sure your bird houses are mounted on something that's stable. There's some birds like chickadees and wrens, even sparrows sometimes, that don't mind a house that kind of gets knocked around in the wind. But for the most part, most birds want something stable. You can put them on the side of a tree, but the only issue with that is that can leave it more susceptible to predators that can easily climb up the bark of the tree and get into the house, either raid it of the nests or the eggs or the nestlings. So your best bet is to put it on a pole. You can always put a baffle on that pole if you have issues with predators climbing up the pole. And this pole here is our very basic, it's just called a bluebird pole. It comes in two pieces. There's holes in it, and two screws go through the pole and right into the back of the house, and then you can stick it right in the ground. It is super, super simple. And so this is the easiest way I've found to mount a house. However, some houses have the cleanouts on the back of them. So this pole does screw into the back of the house. If you have a house that has the clean out on the back, you want to mount it from the bottom. And for the longest time, we only had poles that were really elaborate to mount something on the bottom, where you had to get a flange, you had to get the pole itself and the ground socket, all as separate pieces. But now we have these poles that are really, really easy to install. They have a little, kind of decorative scroll here, which is nice, but they are just the pole and a little finial. You screw the finial into the bottom of the house, super simple, and then the house just gets mounted right on top of the pole, and then it sticks in the ground. So you don't have to do one of those ground sockets that twist into the ground, nothing like that. It's just like a shepherd's hook that you stick into the ground. Super, super simple. So we have these in stock now too for the first time. We've never carried these before. So this is one that I set up here. It has a clean out on the back of it. So I mounted it from the bottom. So super easy to use, and we definitely have them in stock if you're looking for a way to mount your houses. When I was out putting these houses out, I did come across one that I'd had this one in my backyard for years, nothing ever used it, but I was surprised when I was mounting the plate onto the bottom of it that I heard something jiggling around in there, and sure enough, there was a whole bunch of sticks. And I've mentioned a whole bunch of times in this broadcast about wrens, how the male will start building a nest in different locations, and then he'll sing to attract a female, and she'll pick the place that she wants to nest and continue that process. So it looks like that was happening in this house, and I had no idea. At some point, a male started that nest building process, and the female decided no, she wanted to go somewhere else. So I thought that was pretty cool. So I emptied that out, and now it sits on a different piece of property, and we'll see what uses it. But as far as the bluebirds go, we've been getting lots of reports of them checking out houses. They will have 2 or 3 broods a year here in the area. So if you don't have your houses out now, you're not late, but you definitely want to think about getting them out. The first year I tried to attract them, I didn't get houses out until Memorial Day weekend, and I still had bluebirds and tree swallows using them. So you're not too late, but they are starting to nest already. So here is a photo that was just sent in by Bob, who sent a very special Easter egg this morning. And he sent in this picture here of a bluebird egg from his house. So here is the first report that I've heard of an egg in a bluebird house. So it's happening. And there were bluebirds out, it looks like, at Tinker Nature Park here. Mark sent in these beautiful photos here of a male bluebird that looks like it was checking out some of the houses there at Tinker Nature Park, which is a great place to go to look for bluebirds. And if you have bluebird houses out, you might also get these birds here. These are tree swallows. They are also cavity nesters, and they will go into the same type of houses as the bluebirds do. And this photo was sent in by Mark also, but this was out at Montezuma. And it looks like there's a couple tree swallows here sitting on top of a birdhouse. Other birds are busy and doing different things. While I was out installing some of these birdhouses, I saw this tree here that had all kinds of holes in it from a pileated woodpecker. So huge holes, and there was a really big one on the bottom. They make big rectangular holes in the trees, and might be hard to see here, but the ground was just littered with the wood chips from them. And Mark sent in these photos here, and you can see some wood chips flying in the top of the photo, which is pretty funny. He says, Pileated working hard on its nest at Tinker Nature Park. So here's a pileated woodpecker excavating its own nest and making a big hole in the tree there so it can lay its eggs and raise its young inside. So woodpeckers tend to do that. They will go in nest boxes, but they tend to be what you'd call primary cavity nester, where they're the ones building the cavity. So here is evidence of that. And I love this picture with the wood chips just flying everywhere of the pileated woodpecker excavating his nest there. But another thing to be excited about, of course, as it's spring, is that it is getting to be mason bee time. And this is the time of the year where if you have a mason bee house, those bees are going to start emerging. So yesterday, I'm pretty sure I saw one hanging around my house. The mason bees are these little fuzzy bees. They're smaller than a honeybee, and they will lay their eggs in these little tunnels. And this is the time of the year where they start emerging to pollinate different plants, especially fruit trees. If you happen to have fruit trees, mason bees are fabulous for pollinating those. So if you are interested in attracting mason bees, now is the time to put out a mason bee house. They're small, non-stinging, native bees. They're great to have around. And you won't attract other things like wasps or honeybees or bumblebees or anything like that with a mason bee house. You will only attract either mason bees or even leafcutter bees. Sometimes people get in these. But this is the part from my mason bee house that I removed yesterday. I've tried a whole bunch of different types of mason bee houses, but last year I installed this one because it has the ability to remove the actual chambers where the mason bees are. And I really like that because something got into my house last year. So this is what my house looks like at the moment. This is what at least the chambers do in my backyard. So you can see there's a bunch of little holes in there. Some of them are still capped off, but for the most part, there's something it looks like got into that house and got to the mason bees. So what I did is I pulled out my mason bee chamber here. I put it in a different location, and then I was able to get just a replacement little chamber thing. We sell these separately and put a brand new one into the location of the house. So this year, once the mason bees are done with their whole process where they'll lay their eggs and cap off the house, I'm going to put some mesh over the front of it to keep predators out, which I've had to do in the past, but I didn't have to do it the last couple of years, so I thought I was safe, but something got to it. So hopefully I'll have some things emerge from this. Just because there are holes in the front chambers, that doesn't mean that the whole chamber has been compromised by any means, because they'll lay multiple eggs and cap them off as the chamber keeps going. So kind of curious about what will emerge from that house. But you can always change out the tubes, and they say to do that every couple of years or so. And we do have just the replacement tubes also. If you're looking for just the little like cardboard tubes, we have those. You can buy them individually if you want. So just changed this out yesterday, and this is the time of the year where they start to emerge. It's always around, anywhere from, it seems like the 10th to the 17th or so of April. It's like the early to mid-April is when they start to really come out. So we have a very nice weather week coming up this week, and I wouldn't be surprised if when I get home today, there's some mason bees buzzing around the house. So another sure sign of spring. Here's a photo sent in by Bob again, who says, this is the first male goldfinch I've seen this spring that seems to have finished his molt. That full black patch on his forehead is what most of the others do not have. Plus, most of the others are still looking very patchy looking. And that's what they look like in my yard. Very, very patchy still. But here's a lovely photo of a male goldfinch in its beautiful spring/summer breeding plumage. So really, really pretty photo there. Some other birds to be on the lookout for. Lots of reports of these little guys, brown creepers. They blend in really well with the bark of a tree. You can see them creeping up the sides of trees. Eastern phoebe, and this is a migratory species that is coming back into the area. This is a type of flycatcher, and Mark snapped this photo at Tinker Nature Park and sent it in. And yellow-bellied sapsucker, so be on the lookout for them. They are a woodpecker, and there are only migratory woodpecker that we have here. In this photo, you can see why they get their name. They do have that yellow wash on their belly. The males will have that red patch there on their throat. But this is a yellow-bellied sapsucker. They're basically in size, kind of in between a downy woodpecker and a hairy woodpecker, and they're a little bit more slim than a hairy woodpecker is. But be on the lookout for them, because they are flowing in as well, as are the saw-whet owls. We are still in the saw-whet owl migration time, and this photo was sent in by Mark, who took this picture of a saw-whet owl at Owl Woods. And this is a great picture because you can see the owl has its eyes closed. It's not being disturbed, and that's what you want when you are observing these owls. You want to make sure that they can get their rest during the day so they can continue on their migration overnight. And this little fella is flowing into the area as well. If you do go out to Owl Woods in the evenings, there is a field out there that you can see this creature right here, which is called an American woodcock. And they're another migratory bird. They're actually a shorebird, which is kind of deceiving because they look like a shorebird, but they spend all their time in the woods, basically. But now is the time to start listening for them, as they will be doing their mating displays. And the American woodcock has a sound that sounds like it's saying peent, and I can play it for you right here. So if you're out by a field that's surrounded by woods around dusk, listen for this sound of the American woodcock. And what they do is they have this elaborate mating display where they'll spiral really high up in the air, up to 300 feet or so, and then do this zigzag pattern down to the ground. So they have this elaborate mating ritual, mating flight. And now is about the time where you can see that. And there are different organizations that are having woodcock walks in the evenings, Braddock Bay being one of them. Braddock Bay Raptor Research is having them. Rochester Birding Association is as well. So if you're interested in seeing that behavior with a group, I can lead you out to places where they're known to see it. Check out Rochester Birding Association and Braddock Bay Raptor Research. Other birds to be out on the lookout for, mockingbirds. I've been seeing more and more mockingbirds. I did see a couple this winter, so sometimes you can see them in the winter months, but now is going to be when they are more common. They're starting to come back into the area. So here's some photos of northern mockingbird when they fly. You can see these white patches on their wings, which are very distinctive. So more northern mockingbirds are flying in. Also killdeer, another type of shorebird, but this one you can usually find more by a shore, or you can find it in areas that are being developed is another place you can look for them. Parking lots. They like flat open areas, and they are coming back into the area as well. So are the eastern meadowlarks. If you are by a grassland, listen for the eastern meadowlarks. Look for them perched on something tall, singing their little hearts out. They are not very common and actually becoming less and less common. This is one of those birds, those populations are in sharp decline due to lack of habitat and other factors as well. But they are a grassland bird. So if you are by a wide open area, if you're looking for bluebirds, for example, keep your eye out for eastern meadowlarks. Every once in a while, you happen to see one. Song sparrows. People are reporting more and more song sparrows. Actually, be on the lookout underneath your feeders for things like white-crowned sparrows and white-throated sparrows. We just started hearing reports about more of those coming back into the area. But here's your typical song sparrow posture. They sing and sing and sing like their name suggests, and they tend to perch on something fairly high and will just sing their little hearts out this time of the year. And there's been a couple of reports of warblers. While we won't really be getting a push of warblers in until about a month or so from now, some of those early migrants, people have seen a couple of species that have been seen so far this year are going to be the pine warbler. That's this one right here. Every once in a while, people get them at their feeders too, especially early in the season when insect material is going to be scarce. So if you've got any kind of mealworm feeder out or something with sunflower hearts, keep an eye out for pine warbler. And then yellow rumped warbler, which is one of our most common species and actually one of the most widespread warbler species you can find in the country. There have been reports of them as well. And you can't really see it in this photo so much, but they do have these little yellow patches there on their rumps. So that is how they get their name. So it's an exciting time of year. All kinds of different things are starting to flow in. We still have a couple weeks until you need to put out those Oriole feeders, but we will keep you posted about those. We'll be having different Oriole and hummingbird classes, both here at the birdhouse and in store and online. So keep an eye out for those as well. And check out our event list online because we've got lots of fun stuff coming up, including that birding tour on the Sam Patch boat. So we are taking it to the river or to the canal. I guess we're not going all the way to the river. We're going to go on the canal to do some birding. So that'll be really fun this summer. Dina is on. She says, good morning, everyone. This morning, I spotted my first purple finch at the black oil sunflower feeder. So Dina spotted a purple finch. Very, very cool. Ed is on and said, I was concerned about our mason bee house yesterday because the tubes were all empty. And through the winter, there were about a dozen tubes filled. I thought something might have raided it, but I did see a few small bees buzzing around. Sounds like good news to me. Yeah, yesterday I saw one mason bee. I'm almost positive it was a mason bee buzzing around the house, but I thought I better clean that out and get the new tubes in before they all start hatching and then redoing that whole process again. So once my one group of tubes, once those bees have all left and hatched out, I'm going to toss those out and then stick with the other ones that I've got out in the yard. So it's always an exciting time of the year when the mason bees start coming out. Bob says, had a sapsucker visit over the weekend, but a hairy woodpecker chased them away. Okay, so Bob did see a yellow-bellied sapsucker, one of these little critters here, but a hairy woodpecker chased it away. So they're slightly larger, just by a little bit, and sounds like it chased the poor little thing away. Lynn is on and says, good morning. I had a dark-eyed junco on my patio this weekend. So cute. Yes, enjoy those dark-eyed juncos while they are still here. Although a few people do get them throughout the spring, for the most part, they are migrating back up north where they will nest. Well, they'll mate and nest just to come back in the wintertime. Bob says, I also have chipping sparrows around. Okay, so in the winter months, we talk about American tree sparrows, which are a winter bird that we have here. They tend to leave this time of the year, and then those chipping sparrows come back. So Bob is seeing some chipping sparrows, which is another sign of spring. So it is an exciting time of the year. Ed's saying we're still seeing a pair of dark-eyed juncos hanging around as well. Yeah, I had one in my backyard yesterday too. So they're still here and will be here for a little bit. But in general, they're making their way back up north. So looks like that's everybody's comments and questions. Thank you guys for tuning in and have a great week, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.